Hey, garden friends! Hope you're doing great. Welcome back. Got a quick little lesson. We've got some aquaponic lettuce growing here. We have fish down below, pooping in this wonderful water. Bacteria breaks that down, and bada bing, the plants love it. They use the fish waste as fertilizer. What we're long overdue for this, we have a double row here. We got a row of butter crunch and some red sails, and then even a fun little row down the middle of a mix of these. The two main rows were direct seeded, and it's time to thin these out. We probably could have thinned them out maybe last Friday or even sooner, but you know, looking at them right now, they're looking nice and healthy. And so we're actually going to thin these out to about one every 5 to 6 inches or so. So what that's going to look like is I usually try to leave the healthiest ones behind, and so I'll grab some of these smaller ones that aren't looking so hot, and I'll pull them out. We'll feed them to the worms eventually. And so I'm just going to pull some of these out. And then you can kind of see what's going to end up happening here is we'll have a nice, and as you pull them out, you don't want to pull them out and damage the one that you're trying to leave behind. So try to be gentle with the ones you leave behind, because they're at a young age. They're so impressionable. These little seedlings, they don't want to be damaged early on and going. You know, there's no reason to stress them out. So we'll leave that one right there. You can see he'll probably be a little happier now that he's got access to more space from his friends. Should probably even pull this one out. And I know it seems like you're hurting your plants. Well, you are kind of hurting the ones you're pulling out. But if you're leaving behind the healthy ones with correct spacing, like I said, about 5 to 6 inches or so is ideal. Oh, look at here, left one back there. So you can see now we've got some spacing here, which is doing they're going to do a whole heck of a lot better, I believe, if they have that space, because then they have more access to more light and more air, and then their roots aren't competing under the gravel there with their friends. And so I'm even going to pull this one out. You can see some of them are actually even kind of stretching a little bit, and that's what's going to happen if you leave all these in. That's why, you know, more plants doesn't equal more lettuce or more produce, because if they're all packed in there, then they're all going to be struggling, and none of them will do as well as they could have. Sometimes you might plant them like this and then do a cut and come again, where you know, you might let them get all thick in here, and then you just cut them down, mow it down, leave a little bit behind, and then they'll resprout, and then you can keep coming back and have those, those baby greens, and that's totally acceptable as well. But we want to grow these ones up and get them a little bit larger, and that's our goal here. So you can see we've got some good spacing right in here. But this is how I do it. I just get in there and I select the ones out that don't belong, because even sometimes healthy ones have to be pulled out. And I know that's goes against a lot of gardeners, better instincts. You never want to pull out a nice little healthy plant. But in this case, we do need to remove them. Like this one right here is a good sized little seedling, but there's just too many good little sized seedlings in there. We need more space. If they're, like I said, if they're also tightly packed together, then they're all competing for sunlight, or in this case, the artificial light. These are LED grow lights from General Electric. They actually hooked these up and with us a few years back, and that was a gift as part of this project we were doing, and so it's just a wonderful support to us, and so I really appreciate that from them. The lights are actually fantastic. I haven't really done a review on them necessarily, but as you can see, these little seedlings are loving it, and there's just 2 lights in here, so they're pretty powerful, and they don't take up too much electrical power, to my knowledge, from this looking at the specs, which is great. And so you can even see some of that where the leaves were getting shaded out by their friends. Those leaves weren't doing so hot, so that's a good example of why we're pulling these out, because we want the remaining seedlings to have enough space to really just take off and kick butt, because if they're in there really tight, then none of them are going to be happy. And so that's really what it's all about. I said 5 to 6 inches or so. Some folks will we did it a little bit last week where we thinned them out to about 1 every inch. Then they all grew closer, and then at that point, now that you can see, these actually have already been thinned a little bit, pre-thinned, but not thinned nearly enough. And so you can see they all grew back together. So there was actually a lot of seedlings in there. That's why it's also important you do put seed. If you do direct seeding, it's okay to do a little extra, because that helps in case you have some failures, because you can go back and thin. But just realize that the more you overplant and overseed, then the more thinning is going to be required of you. And so that's just something to consider. And you're just wasting seed at a certain point, which may not be too much to you, but to me, the seed's really invaluable and important. So we try to balance it out by throwing some in there just to make sure we have enough, but hopefully not so much that we're just battling battling the ourselves and thinning. So I'm gonna get to work and I'm gonna thin this side out. Maybe I'll have some students that come in and help me and they'll thin that side out. And then let's check back in so I can show you the finished product of what a thinned out little bed of lettuce should look like. Boom, and just like that, we got them all thinned out to about 4 to 6 inches apart or so, give or take. We do have a line of seedlings down the middle that'll eventually probably get thinned out once they get a bit larger. We planted those for experimentation purposes. But yeah, here you can see the 2 outer rows are looking good. We thinned them out. We've got a lot of lettuce pulled out of here, and you know, it is kind of sad to pull out, you know, a living little seedling that you think is doing great and could probably do well, and there's 2 of them right next to each other and you got to just pick one. It is a weird thing, but you know what, once you're done, look how it's thinned out. We'll check back in on these with a follow-up video so you can see how well the seedlings that we left behind, how well they grew. And really, there's no dirt involved, there's no pesticides, just fish waste and some artificial light. Boom, doing great. But yeah, as you can see, that's how it works. That's how and then thinning your seedlings, your lettuce, about 4 to 6 inches, anywhere between there is usually pretty good, at least for these heads. And then you're good to go. But that about rounds it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you'd like to come back for some more garden adventures. Until then, garden friends, happy gardening, and please never stop growing.